This evening is the map amendment or rezoning request for the Barham land. It is 12.43 acres, and the applicant is JA2GA LLC. And the request is to change the zoning from Wake County Highway District to Residential High Conditional Zoning District. Based on the timing of the application, this is under the Land Development Ordinance. And just a note, last year, July 2021, a rezoning case for the same property was denied. And that request was to change the zoning to Residential 3 Conditional District, and that request included 77 townhomes. So the subject property is on the north side of Waite Avenue, just west of the intersection with Averett Road. As I mentioned, the current zoning district is Wake County Highway District, and the applicant proposes to change the zoning to Residential High Conditional Zoning District. The conditions include a concept plan that has 52 attached or single-family attached residential units. That's a density of 4.2 units per acre. The other proposed conditions include providing a 6-foot opaque fence around the perimeter of the property, including having that fence be continuous where the street stub is shown. And the conditions also include specific site construction and blasting hours. Our future land use map does not have a designation for the subject property. So we are looking at the closest future land use classification, and that is medium density residential. And medium density residential is predominantly single family housing with some townhomes and multifamily. And the typical density range for medium density residential is 3 to 5 units per acre. As per Rolesville's community transportation plan, Waite Avenue is identified as a variable width right-of-way with a median curb and gutter and side path. And no traffic impact analysis was required for this project. The applicant did provide a trip generation letter stating that the proposed development would incur 365 daily trips, which is less than the 1,000 daily trips that would trigger a traffic impact analysis. And the proposed development would trigger 30 a.m. peak hour trips and 54 p.m. peak hour trips. Based on consistency with the comprehensive plan, staff does recommend approval of this request. And at this time, I'd like to invite the applicant or applicant's representative up to give a very brief presentation.
Good evening, Chairman Powers and members of the Planning Board. My name is Neil Ghosh. I'm an attorney at the Morningstar Law Group in Raleigh, and I'm representing the applicant for this rezoning. Also with me tonight is Mr. Chase Massey with FLM Engineering, and they've been working involved with this project from the beginning. It was mentioned earlier, you all may recall that a previous project was proposed or rezoning on this property some time ago. I was not involved in that project. But I am told that this board viewed the previous project favorably at the time. Hopefully with the changes we've made, this board will reach a similar conclusion. I do think it's important to understand that the changes we've made to this project stem primarily from feedback we got from surrounding property owners. I think that you mentioned that the previous project was voted down. If I'm not mistaken, actually there was no vote. The project was the application was withdrawn before there was a vote. And that actually gave us an opportunity to revisit the project and make some changes. The new project that we've put together attempts to balance some of the concerns expressed by the neighbors with the market realities and economic viability of the property. Previously, the project contemplated 77 townhomes. The concept plan, which you see in front of you, you're looking at 52 homes, which is over a 30% reduction in the number of units. That is a pretty significant reduction, and my clients feel that the project is still viable in this reduced manner. So, this is a tough change for them to make, but one that we think can work. We also heard concerns from adjacent property owners who live in the county regarding the compatibility of this project with those county properties. Obviously, the town is growing, and with it, so does the need for more housing. With the way the market has been going, I think the need for townhomes and other types of housing options other than large lot single family detached homes has been elevated. To try to balance that, we're proposing kind of a duplex setup, as you can see on the concept plan. So technically, these still are townhomes, but each building has only 2 attached units. In this way, each building ends up looking more like a single-family detached home than, say, a group of 4 or 5 townhomes in one building. And I think that really shows, it helps with the compatibility, but also shows the thoughtfulness that my clients have put into this project. And finally, we are designing this project to be accessible to older folks and folks with mobility issues. As you can see, I don't know if it's in your slides actually, but we're providing a full bedroom suite on the main floor, kitchen, laundry, and dining all on the main floor, while the upstairs could be a couple more bedrooms and some extra living space. Where possible, we also intend not to have any stairs at the main floor entrance. These features we have found are really sought out by older populations and folks with mobility issues, so we're happy to offer that in this setup. We think that makes this project, it's a strength of this project, frankly. So in my view, this project differs significantly from the previous iteration, but it actually ends up being better than what you all approved last time. And we recognize, when we had our neighborhood meeting last week, we recognize that still the folks in the county have some concerns about what's going to be built here. And, maybe they would like to see less, but I don't think that's realistic given the rate at which the town is growing. This project is going to offer some housing to fill the ever-growing need for housing in this town. So thank you for your time, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have, and we hope to have your support this time around as well. Thank you.
So that concludes the presentation, and we're available for any questions.
Questions from the board?
Question. Do you plan to market these to individuals or to investors? What's the plan for this long term?
The individual units are set up to be for sale, if that's what you're asking, rather than for rent.
No, there's 2 units. Is this going to have a master association where all the pieces are taken care of together, or is each individual unit going to take care of their own property?
Okay, I see what you're saying. At the end of the day, this is still a townhome community, so each unit is still individually for sale on its own. And most townhome communities have an HOA in place that would take care of the exterior of the units, the roof, the yard. So that would be the intent here as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Hill, there is not a commitment in the application now regarding use. So any of the RH district uses could be what is eventually placed here at this time. The concept plan, as I understand it, is a concept. Is that correct?
Right, yeah. I mean, I'm not sure the intent here is to offer it as somewhat of a zoning condition, not necessarily specific to this layout, but the duplex setup, the townhome setup. And if we need to add conditions to that, like written conditions, verbal conditions to that, then I think we could do that.
That may be a question for Meredith, because I believe the way it's been submitted, essentially any RH permitted use could go here.
I took the application as this plan would be tied to it and be a condition.
So the concept plan is offered as a condition to the zoning case?
That's the way
I think that was our intent. Okay. I think you can use a picture. We had it under the UDO. We sort of took the picture out of the LDO concept.
Okay.
But it's not precluded. So I think that's fine. We would just clarify that for the Board of Commissioners.
Would you basically place a clause in the condition stating that the plan would not significantly differ from what's been presented? Because you're going to have some minor changes, which would be...
I would defer to Mr. Gush to work with the Planning Department by the time it comes back to have that phrased appropriately.
And we're comfortable with language to that effect. Yeah. I recognize what you're saying.
Would the fencing around the perimeter be subject to the LDO requirements for placement relative to the buffer?
Yes, so this would be subject to
Okay.
LDO requirements.
So it wouldn't be going right around on the property line then?
I am looking at the perimeter buffer type 3 in the LDO,
Okay.
and there, it appears there would be, it would not be right on the property line. There would be a bit of space, and then the landscaping would be adjacent to the fence.
Okay.
These are two, there's no garage for these, so it's on-street or driveway parking?
Actually, there are garages, two-car garage for each unit.
Two-car garage?
Are the plan, the elevations on there?
The elevations are
right there.
here on this
There you
slide. I did not bring the footprints.
Yeah, well, on the elevation, you can see, yeah, so two-car garage for each unit, yeah.
Didn't see that. And then so the main floor is still behind the garage or wrapped around the garage?
That's right, yeah.
And in that case, you'd have no steps for the most part in the garage and outside?
So the idea is for there to be at least one entrance on the main floor that does not have stairs.
How wide are the garages? Because if you have a wheelchair accessible van, you'll need the extra space. But and it's gonna be single door, right?
That's what's shown, single door. I'm not sure how wide the garages are.
I'm not either, but they would be amendable to wheelchair vans as well. That makes it would be wide enough to, because you really,
You mind coming up to the microphone? Be great. Thank you.
hey, Chase Massey with FLM Engineering. The elevations were provided to us from the architect, so I'm not exactly sure on the width of those garages, but I wouldn't foresee any issues with getting ADA accessible vehicles in the garage.
Mail deliveries to the house, I'm sorry. Mail deliveries directly to the house, no mailbox. I didn't see one on the plot.
Yeah, I don't see one on the plot either. My understanding, however, is that the for new communities, they do require mail kiosks. So that would be my expectation, is that there would be a bank of mailboxes.
And there is one in the upper right-hand corner there.
Oh, yeah.
It says, we got the proposed mail kiosk called out with the.
Now I see it.
My glasses on.
I do have a question, Chair. I noticed that the blasting hours, Monday through Friday, from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. And on Saturdays, from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. How did you come about those hours?
Yeah, actually, I don't know. I don't know how that was agreed upon or if that was a carryover from the previous case. I will say I didn't personally work on that language. Did you have different hours in mind for
I'd be
that?
more inclined to something like a 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. or just having it revised a little, just so that the entire day is not being blasted. I'm not sure of the neighbors in that area, the residents in that area, and also removing the Saturday blasting hours altogether.
Okay. So I can't tell you right now that we would commit to that, but I certainly am open to it, and we'll take it back to my client.
We know, is there stone on that site?
I don't know.
Subsurface?
We haven't done any subsurface investigations yet.
Somebody's shaking their head, yes.
Yeah.
So blasting is probably a possibility.
Everything in Rolesville is on con.
Yeah,
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 I tend to agree. Rolesville,
yeah, they were even blasting up the street when they started.
I have another question. So this concept, so these are duplexes? How? could you give
technically,
us
they're
that?
townhomes.
They're townhomes.
Right, so in a duplex, it's usually 2 units on one tax lot. So someone would buy it, and usually that's gonna be an investor, and they would rent out unit A, unit B. These are technically townhomes. Each unit would be individually for sale, But in this case, there's only one party wall shared between the two units. So they look like duplexes. They are legally townhomes.
Right, I've seen these concepts before. I actually owned one at one point. Is there any reason why we went this direction as opposed to the townhome direction or single family?
So previously, we had 77 townhomes on here.
Yep.
And that, I don't think was something the neighbors liked very much because, well, of a number of things, the number of units, but also the kind of massing, where you're getting 4 and 5 townhomes or 5 and 6 townhomes in one building. So you're getting these large buildings that, tend to feel like a multifamily or apartment style building. These are generally going to feel much more like a single-family home. It's 2 units, but it's 2 townhomes side by side. So it's each building is much smaller. So as you go by it, it looks more like single-family. That's kind of the concept here.
Okay, interesting. All right.
What are the proposed square footage in these units?
I think the
I believe it's on the site plan.
it might be on the site plan, but I think
There was something in the question and answer back about 1850, I think it was.
yeah, I think the floor is like 1,800 square feet. That's the floor print of it. So then there'll be less square footage on the upper story. So, in that range, could be 2,200.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just the product is quite interesting to me, so that's why I was always under the impression that townhomes were supposed to be more central to a downtown feel, more of a walkable city limits rather than, are we in the city limits here? We are. So it's not quite in the downtown area, so that's why the concept is just a little alien for me right now. I'm trying to process it as to why this product out this way. But it's your product, so. Okay, thank you.
Didn't Elizabeth Springs, which is near there, have some townhomes in it?
To do.
Isn't that adjacent or right across from
Across
us?
the street, so it kind of,
But within a quarter mile?
yeah, pretty much.
So we are going to have some townhomes close.
Okay.
What was the price point you guys looking to run on that?
I actually don't know on the price point. Yeah, I'm not clear on the price point on this either. It's a question that I've asked the client. Curious myself what these will go for. But I mean, I will say that's kind of the reason they're not single families, because single family on this site is just going to be too expensive.
One more. No, I'm done.
Definitely,
And I'm done.
definitely, please do.
I noticed that in your opening statement, you mentioned a lot of, I didn't get the verbatim word for word, but I wrote down what I could, that these products here were to balance out the single family with acreage or with land. Is that just your opinion, or was there a survey or any data to prove that as to the product need?
What I said earlier is that we were balancing kind of the feedback we got from surrounding property owners versus the market viability of this site, right? So the site currently is zoned, it's in the county, and it's zoned highway district, which allows for residential uses. It also allows for some commercial uses, which is kind of an odd zoning district. But so that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it, which, they submitted a rezoning, I don't know, last year or something like that, which showed 77 townhomes. So the feedback they got, that was not something that the neighbors could support. So something in between there is kind of what we were looking at, right? So developing, the number of units you can build on the site has a direct relation to its market viability or economic viability of the site, right? So there is a number of units, which in this case 52, which is like a 30% reduction, more than a 30% reduction over what they had last time. It's a pretty significant reduction on any project. And that's, that's what they're looking at. They're trying to downsize this project from what they showed previously, versus going like a commercial route or something like that under the current zoning in the county, if that makes sense.
No, I was just trying to determine, again, we're using a lot of views, and I like to see some data to back up a lot of those views, as to where we're getting information from as far as what's more desirable in our community. Is this product here versus single family with some acreage? So that's all. Just wanted to see, so next time when someone comes in, rather than saying my view is that this is the product we want to see, I want to see some data backing that up somehow, if possible, because I am a data person. I like to see data that's driving. Where are you getting these surveys? Where are you getting these opinions? Is it just your opinion? Because our opinion is different. So that's why I'm kind of asking those questions moving forward. That I'd like to see some data backing up these things as far as why we're getting these kind of products. So, and why is there a need for it? But again, that's more on a philosophical level. I'll stop there.
I have a question back for Meredith. Can you clarify and tell me on the traffic, what was the estimated trips in and out? I
Sure.
think you mentioned that.
Sure. I'll go back over the traffic study piece.
Okay.
So a traffic study was not required. Right now, our TIA triggers are 1,000 daily trips and 100 AM or PM peak hour trips. And for this site, the applicant's trip generation letter stated there would be 365 daily trips, and I believe it was, I'll go back, 30 AM peak hour trips and 54 PM peak hour trips.
Okay, thank you. That's what I thought I heard. So I'm trying to struggle with the 30 AM trips on that with 52 units. So a third of those units are going to have people that stay there and don't have double incomes or retired or don't have kids that go to school. I'm struggling with that traffic number right there of how it could only be 30 in the morning, that a third of these people don't work.
And I'd prefer to pass that over to the applicant. If
Right, that's for the applicant.
Sure.
How did we come up, because back to the data that my colleague here said, that's what I'd like to see is some data that supports that versus I think it's that way, or we've come up, since we don't have to do an analysis.
So the trip generations are based off of the ITE trip generation manual, which is used nationally, where they use actual trip data from a variety of projects. So you can look at, say, a different type of use or mix of products, say if it's single family and townhomes, and if if it's 60% single family, 40% townhomes, you can use these ratios to figure out what your AM trip generation would be, or your PM trip generation, and your daily trip generation. So this is all based off of the ITE guidelines, which is based off of data. I don't have that data in front of me, but that's what the trip generation is based off of.
Okay.
It's just the peak hour too, that 30 is the peak hour in the morning, say 8 to 9. So it's unrealistic that all 52 units would have everyone leaving within the same hour there, is where that 30 number comes from.
Okay, I think it just said morning, and that's where I was getting morning versus peak hour. All right.
Any other questions?
Any more questions from the board?
Not for me. Thank you.
Further discussion? Floor is open for motions.
Did anybody in the audience?
Sir, did you wish to say anything? Yes, yes, sir.
I have an opportunity to speak.
Yes, sir.
Please come up to the microphone.
I didn't think I was going to have that. Okay. Well, I'm Max Stillman. I own the property to the west of this project. And it just doesn't fit our neighborhood. We are on multi-acre, single-family homes all around us. So a lot of our other residents have expressed a lot of concern about having this high-density development going in. We would prefer something that's less dense and that's more in line with what kind of area that's on this side of 98. I know that somehow Rolesville got kind of stuck with these 3 lots, mine and these 2, in the negotiation with Town of Wake Forest years ago, whenever it happened. There's just not amenities here for this kind of density, in my opinion. Across the road, there is. You've got a huge development going in up at Everett Road. It's got like 300 or 400 houses on it. It's going to be a huge project. You got Thales Academy that's going in on our side of the road at the corner of Everett and 98. The traffic that they've proposed is fine if this was the only thing that was going in the area. But you think about Thales. That's a K-5 school going in there, no buses. It's all parent-driven students. Across the road, on the south side of 98, is the large development, 300 or 400 homes. I don't know how many it is. There is a huge problem at the intersection of Everett and 98 coming as far as the traffic goes. So even though this is a small development with only X number of traffic generated, it's just adding to the problem of getting out. I mean, if I try to make a left turn out of my driveway, you just can't even imagine it sometimes a day how long I have to wait. 40, 50 cars. I mean, it's just terrible. So, yeah, they're small. 52 homes is not a big deal as far as the traffic goes, but you add it in with all the other proposals and approved plans that are going up. It's just something to think about. So I personally would like to see, a less dense, some kind of less dense development here. We know it's got to be developed. They bought the property, fine. I want them to, do whatever they can, but it's really too dense for our side of the road, in my opinion. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Comments?
I think we're just talking about the density with the homes, and I know we've reduced it from 77 to 52, but also with this, just to clarify, with this being under the UDO or LDO versus UDO, we only need one means of entrance and exit. Prior to the UDO, we have to have 2 per subdivision, correct?
I think it depends on the number of units,
Okay.
and I can
So this will
certainly
only be
look into
one
that.
Looks like there's proposed for future property to the left of it, but we only have one coming off 98.
Floor is open, gentlemen. We can make a motion to either recommend approval or denial.
Mr. Chairman, I'll motion to recommend approval or denial of the rezoning,
Which one?
sorry, of, this is MA 21-08,
Well, approval or denial, which,
denial.
denial?
I'll second.
You have a motion and a second for denial. Open it to voting. Everybody in favor of forwarding it to the town board with a recommendation for denial, please give me an aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Looks like I'm
When would
next.
that go to the town board?
I'm sorry?
When would the town board be considering
This
it?
case is scheduled for the July 6th town board meeting. That board meeting will be on a Wednesday. It's, instead of being on a Tuesday right after Independence Day, it was moved to a Wednesday, so Wednesday, July 6th. So next, the planning director's report. Sorry.
Thank you.
So I have two things. First, on June 21st at the town board work session, staff plans on introducing round 3 LDO amendments. We have a list of things, several of them we talked about or were inspired by the joint work session we had a few months ago. We're going to be talking about traffic impact analyses and those requirements and some other interesting things. And then I'd like to bring that same discussion to the June planning board meeting. I believe it's Monday, June 27th will be our next planning board meeting. So if you'd like to tune in or join or listen in at the town board work session on June 21st, you can get a preview, and then we'll be talking about that next round of LDO amendments, June 27th. Just wanted to get everyone excited about that.
There you go.
And then next, I had a request today for virtual meeting attendance, and I wanted to get your input on your interest in having a virtual attendance option in light of any COVID numbers increasing. If that's something that you would like us to try to set up or not, I'd just like to hear your feedback on that.
So I'll let go ahead and address that. I know COVID's on the increase, or something's on the increase, and there's several reported sick from several different companies. So my question was, if we have another outbreak, what are we gonna do? And I just think it'd be a good idea personally to at least set it up to continue these meetings and not postpone them or move them out a month or two, just attend them have the option to attend them virtually and just try to get that in place and set that in motion now, because it does seem it's on the increase in several different areas that I'm personally involved with.
I
think it's-
understand the desire. We do it all the time at work, but it's very difficult sometimes when you have a mixed or hybrid type of meeting. Everybody virtual or everybody in person, when you end up going into a mixed mode, the folks that are on the video or virtual, those side conversations can be distracting if they occur. Sometimes it's hard to bring your point. Mr. Chairman Bowers, I'm all for that. We would probably have to be a little bit more call on people to make to your point, call on people to make comments, just to keep it fair and even. And I'm for if that's the choice, but just take a little bit more care.
Well, previously, we kind of followed the town managers and I guess mayor both discussed it when everything went virtual in 2020. Yeah, time flies. Do we want to continue to follow what?
Well, yeah, and I guess my suggestion is continue following, doing what we're doing, but if, say, this morning, all of a sudden, everybody's has come down with COVID or can't attend or quarantined, at least have the Zoom meeting
Yeah.
process already in place and say, we're gonna, you could change it at noon on a Monday, say it's gonna be a virtual meeting instead of face-to-face because of whatever, so at least have that set up, because right now we have nothing in place, right?
Yeah.
So if we had to change it today, as my point was, we would have had to cancel the entire meeting, right?
Probably could have
much.
scrambled and pulled
Yeah.
something together, but it's, like I said, it's better to have something in place
It'd
if
be
you need
better
it.
to have a Zoom meeting already in place, set
Yeah.
up, and it's there to utilize if we choose to utilize it, and if we choose to do a face-to-face and continue, then.
Be
just a
proactive
backup-
versus
just a backup
reactive.
plan.
But like Jim brought up, either or, not hybrid.
You could, I mean, because if, one, I'm sick. I don't
Yeah.
want person to be else with it. But so I'm sick, but my boss has been on meetings where they had COVID. Rather than lose the quorum and not participate, I would have the option to participate remotely versus having to bow out and not be able for that meeting. Again, just the only caveat I have of that is just making sure that I'm just as guilty, right? Need to talk to you, Chairman.
How hard would it be to feed in Zoom to the speakers in the room?
I believe it's set up for that.
Mr. Chairman, there are open meeting restrictions and procedures that need to be in place whenever a public body chooses to go to a virtual meeting structure or to have an electronic meeting, which has been authorized by the General Assembly during the now long continuing state of emergency for COVID. And we did employ those procedures in the past. If we wanted to do that again, and I assume that we would if we needed to, we would need to follow those steps. Among things that you cannot do, you cannot, you can't decide immediately before the meeting that you're converting it. There has to be that opportunity for notice to the public that the rules are changing and that their access is going to be different to public bodies. But we, the town, have invested in remote video conference capabilities, and the boards have become more comfortable with that. And as far as I'm aware, we still have those abilities if we do need them. But there are procedures. There are also questions as to what will be the procedures once the state of emergency is lifted, because there are questions as to whether remote participation was ever allowed before the new laws were passed, and that all those laws say they sunset when there's no state of emergency. So the answer is yes, you can do it. You couldn't make the decision on the fly very easily. You would need to know at least, I can't remember whether it's 24 hours in advance, but
Our state board at 72.
Right.
The irrigation board. We have to
And-
give notice.
unfortunately, the state agencies actually had the authority before the emergency procedures to have telephonic and electronic meetings, but local governments didn't. So we're actually hoping to get some of those sort of apply to all public bodies, and we'll see how that goes. Let me also throw out that if you're sick and you cannot attend, you can certainly already be watching simultaneously on YouTube. You just will not be considered part of the quorum, and you won't constitute a part, and it's going to be difficult to ask a question unless someone is watching the chat. So that may be the only distinction between the two, and that is something that the boards have noticed statewide, is that often when most of the members are in the room and only one is remote, that person tends to be pretty quiet and sometimes overlooked. So that has played into some boards' considerations in this topic.
I have a question. Given the point, yes, given our full agenda, our agenda that we have, upcoming agenda that we have as well, missing meetings these days or not having them, could probably present some challenges, especially given with the tornado warning. So not just COVID, but I don't know, weather situations, severe weather, ice storms, you name it. I can see a virtual appeal to having meetings virtually. Now, of course, you may not know in advance what type of inclement weather you're having. So I don't know, what are the protocols? Maybe we should put some protocols in place, but not just COVID. We hope that this thing will go away soon. There are other protocols in place for severe weather. I wasn't sure if I was going to make it higher today if the weather continued the way it was. It looked pretty dangerous. And health and safety is always top of mind. So just a thought. Food for
So
thought.
that does bring up, and you said it was 24-hour notice, so everybody comes in Monday morning, there's roughly, counting staff and board, 12 people. 8 people are out sick with COVID, so how do you won't be able to give 24-hour notice to the public, but you just cancel the meeting at that point?
In all likelihood, the recommendation would be we'd have a conversation with the chair. We would cancel the meeting. If there was pending business that needed to be taken care of more immediately than a month later, we would notice a special meeting that made sense to the members where we could generate a quorum. That generally requires 48 hours notice and published notice on the bulletin board outside.
Okay.
Okay. That works.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Town Attorney's Report. Mr. Neal.
I've already been challenged enough. I'm going to call that my report.
Any other business? Not hearing any. The floor is open for a motion for item number 10.
Mr. Chairman, I'll go ahead and make a motion, we adjourn.
We have a motion for adjournment. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please give me an aye. Aye. Any against? Just checking. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.